What is the secret to unlocking your full potential? What makes your idols any different than you? How do you become the person you've always wanted to be in life? This is where you get all of your questions answered. My name is Justin Shank, and I sit down with some of the most epic individuals who are changing the world with their actions in business and in life. We discuss how they did it, why they pushed themselves, and more importantly, how they were able to focus on continuous growth to achieve their dreams. Welcome to the Growth Now movement. This week, I sit down with Andy Frisella.
Success is really about taking every single thing that you have and making it work for you. It's about flipping the perspective of what normal people would consider bad things and making them things that work.
If I may quote what Andy Frisella says about himself on his website, it says, "I want to be obscenely hardworking and relentlessly focused that I don't just achieve my goals, I murder them. I want to destroy my competition by making sure I'm the absolute best. I want to run up the score on them 100-0. Because I believe that's what it takes to succeed in life. Grit, perseverance, and relentless aggressiveness. The will to do whatever is necessary to get the life you want. That philosophy of life has served me well." And served him well indeed. He currently runs a company called First Form, which this year will pass $200 million. He has a top 50 ranked podcast, which is absolutely killing it, called the MF CEO. And he is inspiring entrepreneurs all around the world to do business the right way, to grow businesses that will profit them forever and ever and ever. Andy is truly the definition of an entrepreneur, a leader, and he's doing things the right way. And in this episode, we dive into so many things. We talk about leadership. We talk about how he finds the right people, and he isn't afraid to give them glory when they earn it. For instance, we talk about Jocko Willink and how he is truly the go-to man in leadership. We talk about his journey in losing over 100 pounds, getting in shape, and how important that was to him to be a leader and to continue to lead and grow his company. And we also talk about the rock bottom moments that he's experienced too along the way. Now, before we get to the episode, I want to point out to you guys, I made a huge announcement yesterday. I announced one of the speakers for Growth Now Movement Live, adding to the already incredible lineup. We are bringing in Albie Manzo from Real Housewives of New Jersey to talk about branding, how to grow your brand, how to take opportunities and take them to the next level. You guys are going to be blown away. I'm honored that I can bring him to the stage for you guys to experience at Growth Now Movement Live. Make sure you go get your tickets at gnmlive.com because ticket prices go up soon. Now, without further ado, I give to you Andy Frisella. Andy, welcome to the Growth Now Movement, man.
What's up, man? Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. It's a long time coming. We got introduced a while ago, and you're a busy man, which running a gigantic business and a massive platform and a massive entrepreneurial platform, totally get it. And I'm honored to be sitting down with you and having this chat, man. I appreciate it.
Thanks, brother. It's no problem. I'm excited about it as well.
For sure. So just to kind of, let's take 2 or 3 minutes, and anybody who's listening on my audience side who doesn't know who are you today? And then we'll unpack the whole thing and get us there.
Man, who am I? The truth is, man, I'm just a regular guy. I'm just, a regular guy from St. Louis, Missouri. Started in business really when I was like 8 years old, selling baseball cards and lemonade and snow cones and all of the other things that kids do, when they have that entrepreneurial drive. Started in my quote unquote real business, the one I'm still in 1999, with basically $0. We had $12,000 that we had saved up from painting the stripes on parking lots. We lived in the back of our first retail store. And here we are 20 years later, almost 19 years later. We're going to eclipse the $200 million a year mark this year. We've got multiple companies that are all vertical within all of them except 2. Are vertical within the nutritional supplement space. We're most known for First Form International, which is a leading global brand of sports performance products. But like I said, we do a number of things in that vertical. And then most people honestly don't even know that about me. They know me from the MF CEO Project, which is my podcast, which is an entrepreneurial podcast that is designed to help our youth learn the things that they aren't being taught about being successful. Right now, we have a very idealistic culture in place right now, from the time our kids are born till the time they get kicked out of the house or go out on their own. They're taught things that just aren't true. And we started 3 years ago with a mission to try and correct that information for these kids, because I have 200 in-house employees, most of which, with the exception of 5 or 6, are millennials. And we do very well. But when they come here versus where they are 6 months later or a year later is a very different place. And so what I try to do is really teach those lessons on my podcast. And that's how we got going. And we've been very successful with the podcast. We do very strong numbers. We've been in the top 50 of podcasts on iTunes for the last 3 years. That's in all categories. And we've been in the top 10, usually the top 5 in business for the full 3 years, which is really unheard of. There's only 1 or 2 other people who've done that.
Yeah,
so
that's incredible.
Yeah.
And especially, I mean, 3 years ago, that's really the beginning of like the flooding of podcasts. So
right.
Like everybody was starting 3 years ago, and to be able to stand out from pretty much day one, right?
Yeah. Well, we were very fortunate because I already had such a huge following. When I started the podcast, we automatically had a built-in listener base, so that pushed our rankings up, and we stayed in the new and noteworthy section at number 1 for the first 3 months. And so what that allowed us to do was gain because then you're featured on iTunes,
right.
Then we gain a ton of other people that we would have never had access to. So we really hit with the right strategy at the right time with the podcast. So we were very fortunate to have that work out for us. And we've been able to maintain it. And we just maintain it by giving out real content.
For sure. The reason I love your story and the reason why I wanted to interview you, yeah, the podcast is cool. And, obviously being in the podcast space, mine does well for some dude in Reading. And I help other people with their podcasts as well. So I get that space. But I love your story because you're one of the few handful of celebrity entrepreneurs, as I throw up that quote, because we live in a world that entrepreneurs are celebrities, right? That have that brick and mortar that started at ground zero and really built it, right? And I think
right.
that's why it's super incredible. And the fact that you're still doing that every single day while still building your own brand. Like it's like you and Gary Vee, and I don't even know if I can name anybody else off the top of my head.
Yeah, we were actually talking about that yesterday. I was talking to Ed Milet about this yesterday, and very few people in the entrepreneur space are truly entrepreneurs, meaning that they actually built a real business that wasn't just a coaching business or making selling books or things like that, or info books, ebooks, courses. A lot of the guys out there that are teaching people entrepreneurship really don't know what the fuck they're talking about.
Yes.
Completely honest. And it makes me cringe because I hear some of the stuff that's being told, and really most of the guys out there, what they're teaching people is to go out, create some sort of information, write some good ad, and then run Facebook ads. And great, that's great. You're going to probably make a little bit of money. Or if you have some sort of widget or you have a product that you can run through Facebook ads, you're probably going to make some money. But if that's what you think being an entrepreneur is, it's not. Because you're really not building a company that can be like liquidated at a later time or you can move on from. See, for me, on paper, my net worth is about $700 million. Okay. So people don't take that into account when they think like, oh, I'm making 20 grand a month selling this product. Yeah, that's great. But what's going to happen when that stops?
Yeah, when that's done, it's done. Yeah.
Right. So, so we have to, Ed and I have been very passionate and dedicated to this cause of helping people understand what it means to build a real brand. Okay. And I think that's lacking right now in the space. I mean, even some of the top guys, they don't really preach that. They preach, the same shit, like work hard, go flip this and flip that and do this. That's okay. That's great. That's a great way to generate the initial cash flow that you need, but you should be looking to roll it into something that can be something of value on its own. And I think that's lacking in the space right now.
For sure, and it's funny because I don't write down questions, but I tend to write down 1 or 2 bullet points of something I want to make sure I get into, and just so I don't remember. And I wrote down, the one bullet point of what I wrote down for you is everyone's an entrepreneur. Like, everybody says that they're an entrepreneur. Not that they actually are. Like, it's the idea that, like, you talk to everybody. And so it's funny that this is coming up now. I won't say his name, but I got a text from a buddy last night who has never owned a business. His life has fallen apart around him, so on and so forth. And I get a text from him last night just after midnight, and he's talking about how he goes, you should be a life coach. Go be a life coach. You can charge X amount of dollars per hour. And like he said, the dollar amount and all this stuff. And I go, my response to him was, the problem with life coaches is that there are people who don't have their life together. They've done nothing to earn it. It becomes an oversaturated bullshit market. And then I went, and I already make more than that an hour. But like, it was just one of these ideas. I'm like, you're going to go become a life coach. And it's the exact idea of these entrepreneurial coaches teaching people how to do it. So as somebody who's done it, right? There's a reason for this rant, by the way. As somebody who's done it and somebody who's built it, why do you feel it's your place to then go teach other people?
For me, personally?
Yeah.
Honestly, I got into that by accident.
Yeah.
This is how it worked for me. I started writing, what you want to say, motivational thoughts or not even motivational, just my thoughts. I started writing them on Facebook in probably 2009. And, when I first started it, there was no intention other than really me just venting. Like, this is what I was struggling with, or this is what annoyed me, or this is what you have to do. And really what it was me talking to me. Okay. And I just put it out there, and that started to evolve. I never expected it to catch on. It wasn't even the purpose. It started catching on. People would share the statuses and the posts, and I gained a following, and I started realizing that people liked it. And so I basically, I started getting looked at for the answer organically. So it wasn't like I decided like, hey, I want to be this. It was like I was already doing this, and people were coming to me with their questions. And most of the questions they had, I had already been through in that journey. And so I would answer them. And then, the podcast was sort of an accident, how we came up with that. So Vaughn and I were writing a book, and we would have these video clips of like things I would say during the book interview. And I would post it on social, on Instagram. And this was back when there were only 15-second clips.
Right.
And people would always comment, what podcast is this? What podcast is this? And I would always be like, it's not a podcast. We're writing a book. Because like to me, podcasting was cheesy.
Yeah.
So I was like letting people know, like, no, man, we're writing a book. This is not a fucking podcast. And so then after like probably that happening for like 3 or 4 or 5 months, I finally learned the hard. I'm like, fuck, dude, maybe we should start a podcast. And that's how it started. So, and then after the podcast started and I got some notoriety through that, my following grew. And then I started getting offers to speak. And, my first speaking gigs obviously were free. Then they started, I had a guy pay me $20,000. I'm like, fuck, that's awesome. And then I had a guy finally offer me $75,000, pay for my travel, fly me in, blah, blah, blah. And I started realizing, like, fuck, dude, like I've kind of created something here on accident. And and what's funny is that I'd like to point out, it's on accident, but the principles can be applied to do it on purpose. Really, all I was doing was genuinely serving people, genuinely sharing information. And so then it just started to all happen. And, before I knew it, I was doing speaking gigs with the biggest speakers in the world. And now I'm solidified in that space. Those guys are all my friends and we all talk, and it just sort of happened. And that's how it happened. So I never thought about like, hey, I'm qualified to teach, but I guess the market says I am, and that's what matters.
Right, for sure. And it's interesting. You say it happens by accident, but I'm sure there's a lot of opportunities that present themselves that you don't go down that route because you're smart enough to kind of see what's right and what's wrong, right?
For sure, man. Like, for sure, that's going to always be the case. And plus, you have to think about, is it worth it? Like, is it worth your time? The truth is like I could make a fucking great living just doing podcasts and speaking. But I like running my company, and I like my team here, and I like what I'm doing here. And I have to say no to a lot of opportunities because I'm committed to those obligations first.
For sure. Yeah. And, and I love that. And I think that sometimes, even in my, my position, my whole business started by accident, right? Now I'm in that whole, like, just starting getting paid to speak and stuff like that. And it's kind of a strange world to be in, because you're like, at first you go, wait, I'm not qualified to teach. And all of a sudden you're teaching, right? Now I do know also, you talk often about entrepreneurs in college. You don't need college to be an entrepreneur and all this stuff. And one of my favorite things is now massive universities are having people pay them $100,000 for 4 years of how to learn how to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah, it's stupid. First of all, that's stupid, because how to be an entrepreneur cannot really truly be taught. Okay. Little skills can be taught, like how to read a balance sheet or how to, do this or that. But the truth of running a business cannot be fucking taught that way. It's got to be taught. I'm a firm believer that it's got to be taught through experience.
Yeah.
Much better off taking that $100,000 and starting a small company and trying to grow it. That doesn't even take into account that the technology that you're going to utilize to build your business, let's say when you're a freshman, is going to be different by the time you're a senior. So you're going to go to school for 4 years right now. By the time you get out, your shit that you were taught that you paid for is out of date. So that's something to consider as well. But, that's what we're taught. We're taught to fucking go to high school, get a degree, which I think is a great idea, obviously. And then we're taught to go to college and get a degree there. And then, and then if we don't have a degree, we're not qualified, which is bullshit. And that's what we're sold. That's the fucking message we're sold. We're sold that from the time we were able to listen and understand. You're going to go to high school. You're going to go to college. You're going to get married. You're going to get a house with a picket fence. You're going to have 2.7 kids. And then you're going to retire. And then you're going to be able to travel the world. Well, the funny thing is that if you follow that path, the prize that you're working for isn't even possible at the end.
Right.
So, it's, to me, my personal belief, and I don't talk about it much, but dude, I think it's a whole fucking scam designed to get to squeeze as much juice out of every single human as they can to take from them. And, and I think that's unfortunate.
Yeah, for sure. So what would be your advice to somebody who, is in college, who, isn't sure what they want to do? Like, what would you say to them? Something drastic, or just keep going?
Well, if they're not sure what to do, it depends, it just depends on what direction they're going. I can tell you this, there's two skills that you have to have no matter what to be successful in business. And one is leadership and the other one is sales. And both take practice with real fucking people. So my advice to somebody in college that doesn't know what they want to do is to try to develop those two skills, especially the sales part first. And then the leadership part will come once you've started to really understand the sales part. But you could get retail jobs, man. Retail jobs are a great place to learn how to sell because you're dealing with multiple people a day. You're getting multiple reps per day. You're dealing with different personalities. You're dealing with people in different moods. And it allows you to learn how to sell to all those people on the spot. And it's very uncomfortable at first. But if you get good at it, you can sell at any level. So that's what I would recommend someone to do, is to get some sort of retail experience, not because it's a great job, but because you can learn so much being there. And then I would say, you're going to I would do personal development on leadership. Like I would read Jocko's books, like Extreme Ownership, and his new book, The Dichotomy of Leadership, which I've read because he gave me an advanced copy, and it's fucking unbelievable.
I can't even imagine what it would be like. Like I can't wait for that book to come out, man.
He's the best in the world at leadership. There's no question. Like, no question.
Yeah, dude, and my brother-in-law turned me on to him, and I was like, who is this Jocko guy you keep talking about? And he handed me his book, and I read it, and then I started listening to his show. I'm like, holy shit, man. Like, this guy's insane.
Yeah. I was talking to him last night, and I was telling him, you know, all the stuff he talks about in his book, I already know, okay, because I've lived it for 20 years. But if I had been taught that, which there's never been a book that's taught leadership like those books teach leadership. If I had been taught that when I was 20 or 22, man, I'd be a fucking billionaire by now, you know? So it's going to be an extremely valuable book for any young up-and-coming entrepreneur to read. And not just read once, over and over and over again. Because I can tell you from someone who's developed those skills through trial and error, it's spot on. Spot on.
Yeah, that's fuck. I can't wait for it. Do you know when it's supposed to come out?
September 25th.
Nice. People didn't know that this was actually promotion for Jocko's book. That's what this episode's all about.
Well, that's a whole nother thing, dude, is like a lot of these guys in the entrepreneur space try to protect their own shit. Like I'll say who's good and who isn't, you know, and I wouldn't, if I needed to learn leadership, the guy's the best in the world. There's no question. So.
Yeah, and I'm a big dude. People ask me all the time, like, how do you choose who you interview? And I go, I don't know. It depends on what I need to learn. You know what I mean? Like I'm on a health kick right now, and you know, trying to get in shape and lose weight and do all these things. And so I just had like the director of men's health on my show and a bunch of those types of people, and like it's the greatest vehicle for me to learn. And that's how have you on the show. I'm at a point now where I want to scale my business. So what are those things, right? And that's where I want to go next. Let's talk about growth, right? There's growing pains, there's mistakes, there's a mindset that happens when you get to a certain point in your business where you're like, I don't know if I can grow anymore, and you're balancing that stress versus growth level. What are some things an entrepreneur can do to push through that to kind of take their business to the next level?
You know, people struggle with scaling for a lot of reasons. I think the biggest reason is trust. I think that people who have trouble scaling their business are afraid to let go of responsibility and put it in someone else's hands, which, by the way, is something that is covered in the books we just mentioned. But I think most people are scared, man. They're scared if they trust this person, that person's going to screw them over or do something to harm what they already have. And that fear keeps them from doing anything. But what you have to realize is that most humans are good, first of all. And second of all, most humans want to contribute to something bigger than themselves.
Yeah.
So as long as you're able to show them the long-term effects of what it is you're trying to do and how they're important and what their job is and why that job is crucial to the growth, people are excited to work on stuff like that, and they take pride in it. But I think that's the biggest thing people struggle with scaling. It's not so much in X's and O's. It's a trust thing, you know, because scaling is really actually easy because you're going to create a little model, you know, and you're going to see if that works. If your little business works at this level, how are you going to grow it? Well, the only way you could grow it is by selling more shit. All right. So how are you going to sell more shit? Well, we're going to run more ads, or we're going to expand our distribution. Okay. Well, to do that, what do we need to do? Well, we need human resources. We need to hire a new salesperson. And see, that's another thing. A lot of people who look at hiring people look at it as an expense instead of an investment.
Right.
And that gives up their ability to fucking scale too. So hiring a new salesperson, like ahead of time, like you're not going to get the sales until you hire a guy to go get them. And people, they have the opposite mentality. They're like, oh, well, when we get to this level, then we'll hire a guy in. It doesn't work like that. You have to hire in advance. You have to scale in advance. You have to make those investments back into your business in advance before you get there. Okay? And I learned this lesson the hard way. Like we have in our retail business, one person can handle 40 transactions a day. Okay? But you cannot handle 41 transactions a day. So on a perfect day, it will be 40. So if I want to get to 50, guess what I have to do? I have to bring another person in.
Right.
that doesn't mean I could get to 50 and then use the money to pay for that person. I have to pay for that person ahead of time, and then the sales come. And people have a hard time with that concept because they don't want to let go of any of the funds, But when you look at it as an investment versus an expense, because really payroll and marketing and all this shit on a balance sheet comes up as an expense. Well, if you look at it, if you start to train yourself to see it as an investment in growth, now you're going to have a better time in understanding what it takes to scale.
For sure. Like you have to take the risk, right? And you have to be able to say, hey, look, I could lose out for 6 months, whatever.
Because it really shouldn't even be risk, because if you, let's say, if you, like just my example of 40 transactions a day, if I figured out how to get to 40, why wouldn't I be able to figure out how to get to 80? Right. It's the same thing. It's just more of it, right? And then until you get to a point where you've got your business mature and you've got to a point where there's no more room. Now you grow by things like adding SKUs or product line extensions and things like that. And or you go international. There's all kinds of things. But I think the biggest problem is the way people look at it. They look at it as an expense instead of an investment. And you're not going to build $100 million business with you and your fucking partner. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So, and then, people are like, I don't know how to train people. And I don't know how, you know what? I didn't know that shit either. Nobody knows that shit. Guess how you learn it?
Yeah.
You learn by fucking doing it.
Yeah. And you make mistakes, right? And then you learn from the mistakes and you grow from there. I mean, without a doubt, I mean, that's some hands down, some great advice. I actually have a friend now, talk about brick and mortar. He's got a brick and mortar coffee and donut shop, which, if you like donuts, are the best in the world. But he's in that scaling moment now. He's like, I got to spend money before I'm making it. I'm like, dude, it's got to be an investment. You got to grow to get to that point where you can start selling more. Like, it's that same exact conversation that we literally just had right there. Like, it's without a doubt.
It's just a flip of perspective. And I think, it's hard for people to grasp that because they're like, oh man, I just got this one. Like, let's just say you have one store and you're like, oh, I just got that one profitable. Then they don't want to let go of the money. But my fucking first store wasn't even profitable. And then I opened my second one, right? It was like break even, open the second one.
Yeah.
And what it comes down to is you've got to live like a fucking peasant for a long time before you get to be a baller. And that's the truth. Everybody they get that extra $1,000 or that extra fucking $5,000 and they're like, fuck dude, I want to go buy a Ducati so I can roll around and look cool. That's not the move to make. You know what I mean? Like, you make that move when you're 12, 15 years in your business and now, you're making $100,000 a month or more and now you don't have any issues.
Right.
So
yeah, I want to talk about, just shift real quick and talk about mindset, right? And talk about, and let's go back to the beginning of your store where you made, what was it, $7? I know the whole story, like $7 the first day, then nothing the week after or something like that.
Yeah, the day after, yeah.
Were you like, fuck, like this isn't gonna work?
Yeah, fuck yeah, I was scared shitless.
So what was the mindset in that? Because I think sometimes fear freezes people. So what's the mindset you should take in that moment of like, oh my God, like this isn't going to work. I need to freeze up and stop everything, go get a job or whatever?
Well, first of all, I'm not willing to accept that for myself. So no matter what, like, I don't care if I have to go fucking independent contract, dig fucking ditches. I'm not working for someone else. So it's what are you willing to accept for your life? And I'm not willing to accept that. The second thing is that I didn't have any other options to fall back on. So it wasn't like I had parents who were going to bail me out, or I had a business I could go run that I didn't have those things. I didn't have options. And I call this zero option mentality. I think the zero option mentality, the mentality of having no other options, okay, is the driver for you to figure out how to get past the roadblocks that come up. And that's an important mentality. Like in the beginning, you might have that mentality because you have it, but most people don't. Most people have the mentality of like this. Well, I'm going to try this, and if it doesn't work, I'm going to go work for Uncle Joe over here selling floors and this and that. They have a contingency plan. And I can tell you this, I don't know one successful person that had a contingency plan. Not one. Because when it gets that hard, when it gets so hard, that you're having nervous breakdowns and you're freaking the fuck out. If you have options, you're going to take them. Okay. So cultivating now how this operates long-term is you have to convince yourself you have no other options. Like right now, like I still to this day feel like if my shit fucking fails, I'm going to be back working in the back of a retail store, sleeping in the back, or striping parking lots, or working construction. Okay. And I believe that. And like other people hear me say that shit and they're like, dude, you're fucking crazy. Well, it is kind of crazy because the truth is I have more money than I could ever spend in my fucking bank account. I'm very good at what I do, not just in business, but also speaking and all these other things. I mean, there's really no way for me not to earn a living at this point in my life. But in my mind, I still remind myself every day that that's bullshit and I could be back digging fucking ditches. And that keeps me aggressive. I don't come in here every day to my actual job and be like, dude, we're killing it. We're killing it. The number one thing I fucking tell my guys on Monday morning meetings is, guys, we're not fucking winning. We're not winning. There's still companies bigger than us. There's still people selling more than us. There's still better known brands than us. We're doing a great job. We're not fucking winning. And I believe that. And so cultivating a zero option mentality, even when you have options, is one of the most important things if you really want to get into the big scale part of your business. You know, my personal opinion. Now, I know not everybody thinks like me, but that's how I've done it.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. What type of role has mentors played in your growth, like as an entrepreneur and you know, what you're doing now, if any?
I've had my dad, and I mean, it's been almost an unfair advantage because he's so smart. So like I don't have mentors like people think about it these days. I had an amazing dad who was also a business guy who taught me a lot of the shit and kept me from making huge mistakes, you know, but also had the awareness to let me go out and learn on my own. You know, he never gave me any money. But he gave me a lot of knowledge, and I mean, I wouldn't be where I'm at without that. There's no fucking way.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's awesome.
Pretty big role, but not in the traditional mentor sense.
Mm-hmm. For sure. No, and I like your mindset of like, hey, we haven't made it yet. There's still people bigger. There's still things to strive for. But so how do you? I mean, that keeps you hungry, but how do you keep yourself happy?
Dude, I like winning. Winning makes me happy. So the more I can win, the more happy I get. I'm not a regular person like I need to go fishing and sit by the fucking lake and have I'm not like that. Like I like to work and I like to win. I like the process dude, I'm a creator and like I like to think about ideas. I like to put them into play. I like to see how they work, even if they don't work. That's what makes me happy. So like I'm one of those people it's pretty unique. Like entrepreneurship is my life, and that is what makes me happy. So a lot of people, you know, they see like, you know, I've got a nice car collection, I live in a nice house, and I do all the shit that, you know, people want to do. I fly private and all that. That shit doesn't mean anything to me, really. What really means something to me is kicking the fuck out of everybody else that I have the opportunity to do that with. And people are like, "Oh, Andy, that's weird. Like you're wired wrong." Well, it's how I'm wired. So, and
it's worked out.
Yeah. And I like it. I like winning. So I'm going to try to win. The more I win, the happier I get.
That's awesome. What about the days that you lose? Because I'm sure what about the days that you lose? Because I'm sure they still exist.
No, I feel good on the days I lose too, because whatever caused me to lose, I'm not going to make the same mistake again. So like almost losing is almost as good as winning for me, because I know that I learned a skill that's going to make me better long term. So I talked about this. I spoke this weekend in LA and I talked about this. Success is really about taking every single thing that you have and making it work for you. It's about flipping the perspective of what normal people would consider bad things and making them things that work. You know, I've had mistakes that have cost me, and I'm being literal, you know, $2-3 million in a day. And most people would crumble on that. They crumble. To me, I laugh it off and I look at my partners and I say, hey, well, we won't fucking do that again. And then we have a beer and we fucking keep going. And that's it, you know?
Yeah. I want to touch on something really quick. And it's, you know, I had mentioned earlier, like my new thing is like, I'm getting healthy, getting in shape, talking with all these people. You have documented daily your weight loss and you getting into shape. You're over 100 pounds lost, right?
Yeah, 110.
Which is freaking incredible, right? So, like, let's talk about that mindset. How much of the mindset that you take into business did you take into that adventure?
It's the same. It's the same thing. Fitness and business are the exact same thing. They both are usually big goals that take a lot of time. Thank you. And the results are, you know, cumulative. It's what you do today plus tomorrow plus the next day. You know, instant gratification doesn't exist in either one of those situations. So, you know, and dude, I don't know. I just think that, like, understanding the cumulative work is something that is really, really hard for people to grasp, because most people, and let's just say fitness, for example, a guy who's 400 pounds, I was 350 pounds, so I wasn't fucking far off. They look at themselves in the mirror, and it's no different than them looking like a person looking at Mount Everest and saying, holy shit, how the fuck are we going to get up there?
Yeah.
And, you know, up until the 1950s, nobody had ever climbed Mount Everest. The first guy to climb Mount Everest was Sir Edmund Hillary, all right? So think about what this guy had to think. He was going to do something that no one else had ever done in the history of the world for thousands of years, because they thought it was impossible. It wasn't because they couldn't do it. And that's the same thing that people look at when they're trying to build a business or they're trying to lose weight. They look at the size and the scope of the problem or the issue that needs to be solved, and they look at it and they say, man, fuck that. I can't do that. And the truth is that if you look in business or you look in fitness, you're going to find Sir Edmund Hillary's to prove to you that it can be done.
Yeah.
Okay. And now we're to the point where there's been like 5,000 summits of Everest. Okay. So most people believe that it's possible. Like, if I trained for Everest for the next 2 years, guess what? I can fucking climb it. I believe that. And everybody probably believes that. So it's a matter of belief, right? For most people that have lots of weight to lose, or because they've never been in shape, or they've never had six pack, or they've never felt good about themselves, they have a very hard time seeing that it's possible for them. But what I try to get people to understand is that we're not that different. Like, I'm not an extremely intelligent person. I'm just somebody who knows it can be done, and I go out and do it. And that's the same thing as climbing a mountain. You know, the Sir Edmund Hillary, when he wanted to climb the mountain, he didn't climb the mountain and say, fuck, I can't do that. He's like, you know what? I don't know how we're going to do it. And then he took 10 steps towards the top, and he looked back and he was 10 steps further than what he was 5 minutes ago. And he understood that that's progress. And if you keep making progress, eventually you get to the top. And that's business, that's fitness. It's really everything that is valuable in life is like that. It's just that people have a hard time. They think, like, they tell themselves this kind of story. Like, man, that's a big ass mountain, and I think I could probably climb it. But what if I do all this work and I still don't get to the top? What if I go to the gym and I work out and I still don't lose weight? What if I follow this diet of all this food I don't like and I still don't get shit? What if I put in all this work into my business and it never happens? And the truth is that if you put in the work, the results will fucking be there. And it doesn't matter if it's in business. It doesn't matter if it's in fitness. It doesn't matter where it is. I am a 1,000% believer, if you are willing to work and you are willing to never quit, that you can get wherever the fuck it is you want to go. And people argue with me about that. They're like, well, there's things that aren't in your control. No. There is things that aren't in your control. There could be a new government regulation that shuts your business down. There could be an epidemic that puts you out of business. The economy could tank and you could go out of business. But it's your choice to look at that moment of you going out of business as the end versus continuing on and seeing it as a lesson. So that's what we're talking about here. You know, I firmly believe that anybody can be successful in their goals, especially business and especially fitness, if they would look at their quote unquote failures as lessons versus looking at it as the end of the story.
Yeah, I love that, man. I love all of that because I live on this idea of like grow 1% every single day, right? So when you lay in bed that night, you look back in your day, you go, am I closer to where I want to be and am I farther away from where I was? And that's it, man, because that's all we can control is right now. Like, yeah, you talk about Everest and the peak of Everest, like it looks really fucking scary, but like you said, 10 steps closer is 10 steps closer.
That's right.
And that's all you can control. So the nice part about these podcasts, as you know, is that you get to talk with some extremely amazing, successful people, however you want to define success. So my question for you is, what's your definition of success, and what are 3 things you do every single day to ensure that success?
I define success as the pursuit of the fulfillment of your true potential. That means that what I mean by that is that people will say, you know, success is $1 million in the bank. First of all, $1 million in the bank, you're going to fucking spend it. All right. If you want $1 million, you better shoot for 20 million. I think that you could define success as the willingness to pursue and expand your potential, because what happens is you're going down the road, right? And you're experiencing things and you're learning things. And because you learn things and you have new skills that cultivate themselves within you, your potential then expands. So you can never actually hit your true potential ever. It's impossible.
I love that.
Your potential is always expanding because you're learning new skills through experience. But I believe that and everybody starts in a different place too. So that's why you can't put a number on something. But I believe that if someone is willing to pursue their potential over the course of their life, that they will accomplish and impact the most amount of people and accomplish the most amount of success that they possibly can. And for some people, that might be, you know, making $100,000 a year. It might not be millions of dollars. Who knows? It might make it $50,000 a year. I don't know. But it's the grit and the perseverance and the willingness to pursue that I think defines a successful person.
I love that, man. So, you know, I want to be respectful of your time. So I wrap up all these episodes the same way, which is 5 rapid fire questions. Some are fun, some are serious. But before we get there, is there anything else you want to add? And how do people get a hold of you? Where do they find you online?
My biggest, they can go to andyfrisella.com, and that'll lead you to my podcast, the MFCEO Project. I think that's our best work that we do. I also do a lot on Instagram. It's at Andy Frisella. And then I do a little bit on Facebook too, but not a whole lot. But yeah, man, you know, I think we covered most of the stuff here. I think the biggest thing that people have to understand is that it's not luck. It's not magic. It's your willingness to fucking pursue it, even when bad shit happens. And you're not going to talk to one successful person out there unless they inherited their money, whatever, a self-made successful person that isn't going to have a plethora of fucking inspirational war stories. Okay. And the reason for that isn't because they're making them up. It's because that's what it takes.
Yeah.
So, you know, people just have to start. They have to be willing to be bad at shit, and they have to be willing to be laughed at and criticized and told that they're not going to make it and that they should get a real job. You know, every motherfucker in my life told me, Andy, when are you going to get a real job? When are you going to stop? Do you still sell that? Do you still have that little vitamin store? Like, those motherfuckers now, they're trying to get jobs here, you know? So you have to realize that just like we talk about losing weight and success is delayed gratification, those criticisms that you hear will also have delayed gratification down the road, because those same people will be the people that are like, oh, I'm so proud of you. And you'll be able to look at them and be like, yeah, I remember when you told me to get a fucking job. Like, and I take a lot of satisfaction in that. So
for sure.
And it's funny too, because I'm quiet about it. Like I don't ever confront people on it. So, and I'm very vocal about taking satisfaction in it. So I know everybody wonders if I fucking remember what they said, but so
that's awesome.
Yeah. So, I mean, dude, it's not supposed to be a short journey. It's not supposed to be quick. It's not supposed to be easy. It's fucking hard for all of us, even me. And, like you listen to Gary Vee and he'll say, I love this shit every day, blah, blah, blah. But fuck, I can tell you right now, there are days when Gary doesn't fucking like what he does. And that's the truth. Okay. And he might argue that. I don't give a fuck what he says. The truth is there's days that he hates it. And there's days I hate it. And that shit, getting through those days is what's going to make you get where you want to be long term. You know?
That's the real shit. Like that's life, right? It's not always perfect. So I fully believe all that. Yeah, man. I love it. I love it. So we get into the 5 rapid fire questions. Like I said, some are fun, some are serious. I ask you this, answer within one word or at the most one sentence. Are you ready?
Yeah.
First one is, you've got no more dues to pay. You're on death row. What would be your last meal?
Pizza and French fries.
Nice. It's a good choice. Yeah. So what is the one trait you look for in your friends? Like, what's the one thing that they have to have this or you won't be friends with them?
Integrity.
Love it. If you could have dinner with one person, who would it be? Dead or alive?
Hitler.
Dude, you know what? The fact that you said that, I have the same answer, but I'm always afraid to say that out loud because I feel like people would judge me for it.
No, I'll tell you why. People do judge you, but that's because they're stupid. Okay? The reason I would do that is because I would like to learn how the fuck you could convince so many people to do so much bad shit, and I would like to use those techniques to convince people to do good shit.
Yeah.
Okay? Because if you could convince people to exterminate a fucking race of people, you're very persuasive in what you do. And so when I say that, I want to know, because if you could convince those people to do that, what could you do with that? And that's my mentality there.
Dude, just yesterday I talked to somebody who sat down for 45 minutes and interviewed Fidel Castro when he was still alive. And she was like, the presence that he had and how he spoke and his voice inflection and all the right times. I'm like, and I said to her straight up, I was like, Hitler did the same thing. It's why I'm intrigued by it. Yes, he did bad with it, but it's intriguing.
The world is ruled through a microphone. Remember that.
Yeah.
Okay. So, all of those things that you just mentioned are extremely powerful. And that's just, people judge me for that all the time. I get asked that question a lot. And I say that and people are like, and it's like, yeah, but you got to acknowledge the guy's ability to fucking move people. Because if you can move people in a negative direction like that, dude, that motherfucker could have changed the course of the earth in a good way had he been wired properly.
Yeah. It's so true. And I reacted that way because that's my answer. Like, that would be my answer. Now I'm saying it whenever I get asked that question, I'm saying it just because you said it. So I appreciate that. Well,
here's the deal. Every time you say that, people always give you an opportunity to explain. So
you would hope, because if it ends there, we're all in trouble.
Right.
And that's the sound clip that we're using for this episode.
Right.
At the end of your life, if you could only be remembered for one sentence, what would it be?
The world is better off for me being here.
I love that. So obviously this podcast is called the Growth Now Movement. So I wrap up every single episode with this one question, and that is, in your life, what has been your biggest moment of growth?
When I got stabbed in the face, that was a transformative experience, to say the least. It changed my perspective on many things that I thought were true that weren't, and really removed a lot of boundaries that I had put in my head about myself. And really, truly was one of the best things that ever happened to me. So,
yeah, I know we didn't touch on that, but I know that part of your story too. And, I recommend everybody go try and hear that part of the story. It's crazy.
If you want to listen to that whole story, they can listen to episode 1 of the MFCEO project. Now, I will warn you, the episode 1 is total garbage when it comes to production value. I had never listened to a podcast before. and we just decided to make it up. And so give us a little slack on the production value. And if you want production value, go listen to a later podcast. But the story and the content in that podcast is the whole story's in there, and you learn a lot about me, I think, by listening to that one.
I love it, man. Dude, Andy, I appreciate your time. I appreciate you being unapologetically yourself and changing the course of this world for the better, because I really do believe that sentence will be your swan song at the end, man. So I really do appreciate your time.
Dude, thank you, man. I've had a really good time doing this interview. I wish you the best of luck with the podcast. If there's anything I can do, let me know. And I just want to say thank you guys all for tuning in.
Thanks, brother.
Thank you guys so much for being a part of the Growth Now movement. This is how you can really help me out. If you guys enjoyed this episode, please share it out on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all that fun stuff. And let's grow this movement to epic heights. And it's all going to be because of you guys. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next week.